People's history is 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 history 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 is history is history 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 is history is history is history. A people's history, or history from below, is a type of historical narrative which attempts to account for historical events from the perspective of common people rather than leaders. There is an emphasis on disenfranchised, the oppressed, the poor, the nonconformists, and otherwise marginal groups. The authors are typically on the left and have a Marxist model in mind, as in the approach of the History Workshop movement in Britain in the 1960s. History from below and people's history. History is 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 history. Lucien Febvre first used the phrase histoire vue d'en bas et non d'en haut, history seen from below and not from above, in 1932, when praising Albert Mathies for seeking to tell the histoire des masses et non de vedettes hist. It was also used in the title of A. L. Morton's 1938 book, A People's History of England. Yet, it was E. P. Thompson's essay History from Below in the Times Literary Supplement 1966, which brought the phrase to the forefront of historiography from the 1970s. 113, it was popularized among non-historians by Howard Zinn's 1980 book, A People's History of the United States. Description: A people's history is the history, as the story of mass movements and of the outsiders. Individuals not included in the past in other type of writing about history are part of history from below theory's primary focus, which includes the disenfranchised, the oppressed, the poor, the nonconformists, the subaltern, and the otherwise forgotten people. This theory also usually focuses on events occurring in the French Revolution, or when an overwhelming wave of smaller events caused certain developments to occur. This revisionist approach to writing history is in direct opposition to methods which tend to emphasize single great figures in history, referred to as the great man theory. It argues that the driving factor of history is the daily life of ordinary people, their social status and profession. These are the factors that push and pull on opinions and allow for trends to develop, as opposed to great people introducing ideas or initiating events. In his book A People's History of the United States, Howard Zinn wrote, "The history of any country, presented as the history of a family, conceals fierce conflicts of interest, sometimes exploding, most often repressed, between conquerors and conquered, masters and slaves, capitalists and workers, dominators and dominated, in race and walks and sex." And criticism. Historian Guy Boehner wrote that the neo-Marxist flag-bearers of history from below have at times resorted to idealized and insufficiently sophisticated notions of the people, unduly ascribing to them innate progressive values. In practice, democratic history is by no means egalitarian.